So fuck is also said a total of 1,226 times in this movie. At the time of its release, it set the record for the most use of the word outside of pornography. And I don't think porn's
fuck.
Fuck me, Nanny.
Fuck me.
This podcast is not rated X.
Fuck me.
Ooh, wait. No.
Listen.
Listen.
Wait.
I hate you for that.
Let me fix it.
Oh, baby, I love your way.
Wow, what's on your heart, friend?
Girl. Well, after spring break, it's just a Monday. It's just a Monday. I will say this though. This happens to me this happened to me 3 times on days we were recording.
Yes.
I'm sitting on the train coming back home after teaching the cheer-in, and this girl's looking at me, black girl looking at me. And then I was like, why is she staring at me? And then I thought she was going to talk about my theater work because I was like, oh, she's probably see me on stage. But she was like, I'm sorry, do you host the Fix It Pod? Are you the co-host of the Fix It? I was like, I do. She's like, oh, great. And then she put her headphones back on. I was like, thanks for listening. And she was like, yeah, no, I love it. It was really sweet. So, hey, girl on the train, I see you.
Oh, that's so cute. You always get recognized on the train.
I know. Well, because
I
mean, you get recognized, but at a party you're going to because you're in your own car, I suppose.
Yeah.
It happened to you in New York, though, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. In New York, a fair amount of time. I'll never forget. It was right after I had signed my divorce papers and I was on the train crying. And so I got home and I had a mention on Twitter that said, I saw Jessica Lee crying on the train. And somebody said, what was she crying about? I don't know, girl. She looked real upset. And I was like, oh my.
Why would they do that to you? That is so. I saw this girl cry and mentioned your ass. Damn.
Literally, you didn't have to mention me. You could have just seen me and kept it pushing, but that's the way of the world, I guess. Welcome back to Let Me Fix It, the podcast that says, say hello to my little 3-hour movie. I'm Francesca Ramsey. I'm an actress, a producer, writer, and graphic designer.
And I'm Delon Grant. I'm an actor, singer, photographer, writer, and educator in class. If you couldn't tell by Francesca's spot-on Tony Montana impression, this week we're diving into what's widely accepted as one of the greatest gangster movies of all time, 1983's Scarface. Now, Fran, you picked this movie this week, so
yes.
I'm giving you a little side eye because this film class, it was 3 hours long. It was 3 hours I will never get back. And I gotta be honest, it really didn't need to be, girl.
No, and listen, I take full accountability here. I'm listening, I'm learning, and from now on, I'm looking up the runtime before we decide to tackle a film. Truthfully, I didn't know much about Scarface beyond the fact that it's like the favorite movie of almost every frat boy and every rapper of the last 4 decades. But we needed to do a classic movie.
You're right. We really, really did need to do a classic movie because we were fixing all the new ones. So like we need to dig in to like the cultural zeitgeist, the history of it.
Yes.
And of course, there's a lot to talk about, class. The drugs, the violence, the music, the fashions, the terrible accents. So as usual, we're going to review the film and then we'll do what we do here and try our best to fix it. And maybe even do a little fan casting of the Scarface reboot, maybe?
Okay.
So let's dive in. This is Scarface. Let me fix it. Before
we dive in, a quick reminder that we have a YouTube channel where you can see our lovely faces every week, youtube.com/@fixapod, or hit the link in the episode description. We say this every week at the end of the episode, but a lot of y'all don't listen to the very end. So I thought it would be nice to put it early. Also, if you have a tagline idea for the pod, please email us a voice note of yourself to lemmefixit. Also, if you have a tagline idea for the opening of the pod, welcome back to Let Me Fix It, the podcast that says blank, send us a voice note, lemmefixitpod@gmail.com, and we might use it in the show. Okay. Delon, do we really need a spoiler alert for a 41-year-old movie?
Girl, no, it's as old as we are. That's the
only reason I know how old the movie is. Okay, maybe not, but here it is. Not only are we going to spoil this film, but it is violent as hell. So if that's not your thing, you know what to do. Okay, Delon, let's jump in.
All right. So released in 1983, as I just said, the year Francesca and I were both born, Scarface stars Al Pacino as Tony Montoya. I keep saying Montoya, Tony Montana, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Cuban immigrant who arrives in Miami in the 1980s with nothing and rises to become a huge, powerful drug lord. Okay, here's a
Mm-hmm.
quick factoid because I thought this was very interesting.
Okay.
So, Mariel Boatlift was. Let me start here. So, the movie paints the backdrop during like Cuba in the 1980s, and there were all these
Mm-hmm.
immigrants that left Cuba, right? But that what happened was called the Mariel Boatlift,
Oh.
and it, all of these Cubans were trying to get out of Cuba because they were being, crushed under the Fidel Castro regime. So what they did in 1980, they stormed the Peruvian embassy in Cuba, and to like quell all of the unrest. Castro was like, okay, girl, here what you can do. Go to this boat lift and y'all can go. So he
Mm-hmm.
sent, I think, 125,000 people left. But there was like this rumor that like 25,000 of those people might have been criminals. And that's
Yeah.
just because there was like an uptick in crime when all of these immigrants came to Florida. Now, I don't know anything about no history. But
Mm-hmm.
it just feels like it feels a little Donald Trump. It feels a little,
Well,
you know what I mean?
and you know what? We will get into this, but this is a big part of why a lot of Cuban Americans rightfully don't like this movie because it
Right.
pushes a stereotype about the types of immigrants that were leaving Cuba to come to the States, and it does it in a way, and this it's not a real story. Like, this is a
Right.
total act of fiction.
Right. And the other part of it is like it just feels like a little propaganda to
Oh
me.
yeah.
Anyway, back to a couple more factoids here. We have Al Pacino, I guess, stayed in character by having the director of photography speak to him in Spanish. I think it's kind of
Yeah.
smart. I think
I
it's kind
mean,
of
listen,
smart.
yeah, it's smart, but did it help? Because the accent is
The
so
answer is no.
the accent is so bad, and
It's pretty
many
bad.
native Spanish speakers, and especially Cuban Americans, really felt like the accent was inauthentic. He is not Hispanic. Al Pacino is Italian American. His pronunciation and delivery don't always match that of a native Cuban, and it really does sound. Delon, you pointed out that he's like turning down his
It's
mouth.
the,
He's
the
like,
turned down mouth, but also it's also not consistent, right? It's
oh
not
no.
regular consistent throughout the entire film.
He has it on
Um,
some words, and on other words, it completely disappears.
Right. So back to the actual plot. Right off the bat, we see Tony is ruthlessly ambitious. After being stuck in a refugee camp for months with his bestie, Manny Rivera, played by I'm
Ooh,
so glad you wrote this
ooh,
in here, Fran. The
ooh,
smolderingly hot Stephen Bauer. This
fine,
motherfucker.
finer than frog hair. I mean, god damn.
Yo, I mean, delicious. And like
Honestly,
six
yeah.
foot something.
Oh,
Oh,
and so like suave, and just had
yes.
like a big dick energy the whole
Yes.
fucking movie.
And I wonder, I mean, his last name is Rivera, so I assume he's like maybe some kind of Latino or something. But they definitely gave both of them a tan. I was like, they
Oh
tanned y'all
yeah.
motherfuckers up in this one. Okay. So
Yes.
Manny, played by Stephen Bauer. Oh, excuse me. Manny Rivera, Stephen Bauer. So
Yes.
I don't know that Stephen Bauer is Latino, but they
But they
tanned
both
him
had a
up a little bit.
tan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Manny comes up with a plan to help them get noticed by this drug kingpin in Miami named Frank Lopez, who's played by Frank Loggia, who's another
Mm.
famous actor. I hated this character, by the by. Hated
He's
this fucking
terrible,
character. Always
terrible.
laughing. But they also wanted to get their green card. So what do? Frank has just a little contract killing for them to
Oh,
do, and wham bam.
oh,
Welcome to
so
America.
super easy. So Tony is, of course, up for the job. So he stabs this very sketchy dude dressed all in white. I mean, you're not trying to stand out in the refugee camp.
Right.
He
And he
comes
has his
in
bag and he's like looking left and right, all
and he's got his
creepily.
hat pulled down, and he's like looking around very shiftily. It's like someone should murder me.
It's like so on the nose and not subtle at all.
No, not at all. Okay, so they knife this guy, or Tony knifes the guy, and then he and Manny get out. They get their green cards, and they start working for Frank. But their first job ends with Tony's best friend getting cut up with a chainsaw. Now, Delon, this scene was
Was
insane.
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 It was crazy. Well, and you like, just knowing story, you knew something bad had to happen because of
Yes.
it's just a film, right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
when it was actually really kind of riveting because
Yes.
the class, they go into this hotel room and it's kind of like this weird exchange where like they're, you got the money, yeah, you got the drugs, yeah,
Yeah. Where is
you
it?
got
Not
the
here.
money.
Where is the money?
Where?
It's not here. It's in a different place. They're kind of going back and
And then,
forth.
he introduced, there's this woman like lounged down on the bed, watching TV. On this pillow, and he goes, "That's Sophia, whatever her name is. That's
Yeah.
Sophia." And then Sophia pulls out a clock. She pulls out this big ass shotgun. It was crazy.
Oh my God. It just also, to your point about it being riveting, it was really a scene where it went from 0 to 160 in 2 seconds.
Yes.
And I just didn't know where it was going, which I think is the point,
Right.
because they, it was kind of like they were going to try and steal the money from Tony.
Mhm.
That's, I think, was going to happen.
Right.
And so then they throw them in the bathroom and he just opens a suitcase and suddenly he has a chainsaw. Why you gotta pull out a chainsaw? And I don't know. And then he's cutting the friend up in the bathroom and blood is squirting all over the place.
On Tony's face, it was disgusting.
Oh, it was terrible. So notably, writers Kurt Vonnegut and John Irving were among those who allegedly walked out of the infamous chainsaw scene. A lot of people left the theater during this point, and I can't say that I blame them.
Well, also, I would add to historically, and please correct me if anybody
Sure.
knows, but I would, because we'll talk about the X rating in a minute here,
Mhm.
but I wonder if like that kind of violence and gore was relatively new to culture on screen.
Yeah, and here's what I kept thinking about is that, yes, this chainsaw scene is really graphic, but the chainsaw happens off camera. You see
Yeah.
him go, "Rrrr," and then you see the blood hit Tony in
Ooh.
the face, but you don't see him actually cut the guy up, which I think is like kind of a brilliant filmmaking move, because we
Yes.
know what's happening. We don't need to see it in order to
Because I
understand
still
it.
reacted. Like the squirt of the blood was enough.
Oh God. And shout out to Tony, because he's taking it like a champ. He's like, I don't give a fuck. Cut that motherfucker up.
Wait, you're so right. He goes, "You see what I'm do your friend?" Tony goes, "Whatever."
Yeah, whatever.
Cut
I don't know that
fool
motherfucker
up.
that well.
I picked him up at the refugee camp.
Whatever. Exactly. I've known him 15 fucking minutes. So when they get back, Frank is really impressed by how Tony and Manny handled the deal, even though the friend got killed. But it isn't long before Tony begins to think that Frank isn't cut out, no pun intended, to be the boss, because he's just way too cautious when it comes to doing business.
And you know where this is going.
Mhm.
Determined to make a name for himself, Tony negotiates a huge deal with this Bolivian drug lord without running it past Frank first. Frank, of course, is pissed, but little does he know, Tony's got his eyes set on his job and his girl, Elvira
Hello?
Hancock, played by a then 23-year-old Michelle Pfeiffer. Yo,
We
I
gotta
could not believe she's 23.
Michelle Pfeiffer?
Yo.
Girl, there's a reason you have always been famous. She had the
Gross.
juice from the get-go.
Girl,
Every scene, I'm like, who is that?
Stunning. I mean, class, it starts with her. It's so well done. Oliver Stone, beautiful job.
Mhm.
It's in this stupid house where she's coming down in this glass elevator.
In the
and you
elevator,
just-
you see her back.
just a big old backless dress with the spaghetti strap. You don't even see her face, and
Oh.
she's just sitting there posing, waiting.
She's going down that elevator, and Tony is like, who the fuck is that?
Yes.
I mean, just gorgeous. I will say, though, Elvira is a terrible name. That's not a sexy, hot girl name.
I think the famous Elvira would beg to differ, but yes.
I mean, listen, but I think that in that instance, it was kind of like subverting expectations, because
Sure.
Elvira is like, I don't know, she's not like a zombie queen. I don't know what.
No,
would you
she's like the
describe
queen of the dark or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that I'm just associating maybe Elvira with that, and you know what it is too. It sounds close to evil.
Yeah.
Evil. It sounds very dark. And then
You're right.
you know.
I don't like that.
So a few interesting things, a few factoids. Michelle Pfeiffer was a relative newcomer at the time, so much so that director Brian De Palma was hesitant to audition her. Now, this is a theme with us in these movies. He said, I don't no, she not famous. Glenn Close and Gina Davis were both being considered for the part, but thankfully it went to Michelle. She also said that she did not enjoy making Scarface because she was hungry the whole time she was filming. She was starving
Well,
herself.
and the reason she had to be starving class is because she's a full-on cocaine addict.
Oh,
And so
oh,
there was no way, she had to look the part, I guess, or
oh,
they made her
yeah.
look the part.
And
But
they have her in these tiny little dresses that are always open back and always got what little titty meat she got left
oh, I
hanging
mean,
out the
God, yes.
side. She looked amazing, but I will say I appreciated hearing this part of it because, as you know, film sets these unrealistic expectations. And Michelle said this was not fun. So much so that when she got offered the part of Ginger in Casino, famously played by Sharon Stone, she said no. She said, I'm not going to do that
She
again.
said, "I like cheeseburgers." I'm also going to give it up to you, Michelle. I mean, I know we're talking about your looks as a 23-year-old, but I also want to give it up to well, it is your genetics, but your hair. The
Ooh,
hair was she had a thick
the bob.
bob. It was all thick and flowy. I said, "You
Oh,
better have a
yeah.
nice head of hair."
Yes.
Damn.
You know what? And I just want to say, white girls, bring the bob back. Y'all
Yeah.
ripping out what little edges you got trying to do what we're doing. Do that. That shit looked
Yeah.
fucking bomb.
It really did.
So eventually, Tony's ambition gets the best of him, and he ends up killing Frank, taking over his drug empire, and marrying Elvira. Now, of course, Tony's downfall is inevitable as the power gets to his head, and he breaks Frank's golden rule: never get high on your own supply. Tony starts doing more and more coke, and he becomes increasingly reckless and paranoid. His marriage with Elvira falls apart. He and Manny are on the outs. Tony starts shooting people left and right. One of his men, he's a crooked cop on the payroll. He gets into screaming matches with his mom and his sister. I mean, he is going through it. Things finally come to a head when Tony shows up at Manny's house and sees that he has slept with his sister Gina. He then shoots Manny
Mm.
point fucking blank,
That
only
broke
for
my heart.
Gina. Oh, I mean, he didn't even let him say anything. He was
No.
just like, I'm going to shoot you now. And then Gina reveals she comes downstairs, she's crying, that she and Manny had just gotten married the night before and they were going to surprise Tony, which I guess that would have made it better. I don't know.
I mean, I guess, but the film really set that up. You saw like Tony told Manny early on to stay away
Stay
from his
away.
sister,
Mm-hmm.
and like they were clearly being clandestine and like
Mm-hmm.
hiding their relationship and stuff. So you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
The film ends with Tony's empire crumbling around him. He's killed his best friend. Elvira's left him. Then, delirious with grief, Gina tries to seduce and slash murder him, and
Yeah.
finally his mansion is swarmed by all these assassins who were sent by that Bolivian drug lord, because when the Bolivian drug lord says early on, which is, this is also a plot point, just don't fuck me over, so you know that
Yeah.
he's gonna fuck Tony over, and when Tony does it, then he comes on and kills him.
Yeah.
In a final cocaine fueled rampage, Tony pulls out a grenade launcher and says his now infamous line, "Say hello to my little friend." And he guns down attackers left and right before being fatally shot from behind. He falls from the balcony and poetically lands in a giant fountain below, inscribed with, "The world is yours." um,
Not anymore.
what was crazy was like that clown car of assassins. I was like, that just keep coming.
Oh, they were just coming at like left and right. And I mean, it really is like a well choreographed
It really is.
scene, and I think the whole point of the grenade launcher is there's a moment where you think, is he going to get out of this? Like,
Right.
is he going to pull this off? And, I think that's a testament to good filmmaking because we know he's going to die, but there's a brief moment where you're like, I don't know,
Hope.
he might figure this out.
Right.
So Delon, what surprised you about the movie?
How long it was. I always say that. I guess what surprised me is like, Tony's technically the anti-hero, right? Class, if you don't know what the anti-hero is a central character that usually, that it's protagonist, that has dubious behaviors, right? That
Yes.
does
He's a
immoral
bad guy.
things, but despite that, we still root for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did not root for him at all. Like,
No.
the film really does tries to attempts to soften him by giving him Gina and having him care for his sister and his mother. At one point, I think it's like an hour in, he goes to meet his mother and Gina, and the film introduces
Yeah.
them, and he gives them money. But I was surprised. I was like, to be the anti-hero, I wasn't rooting for you. There was nothing
No.
really redeeming about him. The other thing I'll
No.
say is, like, there's like this the capitalism and the American dream is really wrapped up in this. And I feel like the reason I use the word propaganda is because, like, it's saying, yeah, the American dream, capitalism, that's what you should fight for. That's like ingrained in that, right? But then we're using violence and we're using crime to support
Mm-hmm.
that. And I think that just is not super congruous for me. Like, I feel like we're supporting that. I know we're going to get to rappers really soon, but like that also is kind
Yeah.
of wrapped up in that too.
Yeah,
But what surprised you?
I think you're right on the propaganda of it all too, in that like there are a number of people who are not Latino, not Hispanic, doing these big cartoonish accents as, you know, they're slinging drugs and guns. And like when we actually think about and you know, we do have Frank. I think Frank is supposed to be
He's
Frank's
Jewish.
he's okay, so he's not
But
Latino.
he feels like adjacent. They're doing something weird with
He's
him
kind of
too,
doing an
though.
accent too.
Yes,
Like
yes.
I think to your point about the propaganda of it all, if we really look at who profits off of drugs in this country and who facilitates drugs being sold in this country, it's
Hmm.
a lot of white people. So
Hmm.
like it is pushing this narrative that it's the scary brown people.
Right.
So much so that like they didn't really, I mean, they used a lot of Cuban Americans as extras in the film,
Yes.
but the main cast, they're not Latino. So, you know, I think you're right in the propaganda of it all.
Even the supporting cast is not Latino. F.
Right.
Murray Abraham was up in there. I was like, oh, what are you doing, sir?
Yeah, the
What
accents were crazy.
what
What
surprised you?
surprised what I mean, the length really did surprise me. We really don't get 3-hour movies
Wait,
anymore.
class. I texted Fred. I was like, girl, this thing was 3 hours. She's like, oh, should we pick another one? And I was like, girl, I
I
just
was like,
finished it. No, we have
ooh,
to do
abort.
it.
No, yeah, it was really long. I will also say it was slow. It was
It
slow.
was
Like
very
for a
slow.
movie that's an action film with lots of like guns and blood and coke, there were a lot of scenes where I was like, we could speed this
That
up.
coke ain't working. Y'all need to speed your asses up.
We need the director to do some coke. Like, let's get the scene because there were so many. A good example. Michelle Pfeiffer coming down the elevator, that was a wonderful moment. But there were lots of moments in the film like that where it was like, I don't need to see you walk from point A to point B. We could start the
Mm-hmm.
scene at point B. Like, we don't
Mm-hmm.
need all of this walk and barely any talk. You know, Manny and Tony spend a lot of time talking about, you know, what they want to accomplish and what they want to do. We don't need 10 scenes of them being like, man, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it in America. Like, okay, let's start making it, you know? So it was slow. What do you think worked in the film?
Well, let's jump to what didn't work really quick,
Okay.
because I think just on the slow of it all, I have a
Mm-hmm.
couple of scenes that I want us to talk
Yes,
about. There was
please.
a scene where, like, Tony's courting Elvira the whole movie,
Yes.
right? And then he picks her up because I guess Frank told him to pick her up and take her somewhere, but he takes her to this car shop because she doesn't want to get in his car.
She thinks his car is ugly.
So, but then she ends up getting it anyway to go to the car shop. Like, right? So stupid. But so
Yeah.
they go to this car shop and they spend like 10 minutes in the car shop where they're just looking around,
Looking
not
at the
even
car. Just looking at this car.
kind of flirting. I'm like, that couldn't happen in the car that when he was driving her to the place. It was so long.
Yeah.
There's this other scene where, like, remember like the attempted assassination of Tony, where
Yes.
they have these comedians and then some guys in like a funny suit, and you watch these comedians or these assassins with guns just staring at Tony. We're just waiting for
Wait,
them.
did you notice who the comedian was?
It was the
Jerry
guy from
Orbach.
No, not Jerry Orbach.
What that was the guy from he's from Law and Order.
Law and Order, but it's the other guy with the sunglasses from Law
He's
and
not,
Order.
what's his name? Hold on.
Frank something.
It's not Jerry Orbach. You're right. It's Jerry. It's the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what his name is. Comedian, Law and Order. Oh, Richard Belzer,
Yes, Richard Belzer.
who died in 2023, so not very long ago.
God bless. But there was that long scene where they were trying to kill him, and I was like, "Can we just get
Yeah.
on with it, right?"
Yeah.
At one point, there's that Oliver Stone who directed it. There are like these dolly shots, these long dolly shots where he starts up from somewhere, and then you see a whole span of wherever the fuck they are. At one point, they're at the beach, and
Mm-hmm.
it starts way up high. You see some people playing volleyball, and we slowly come down to
Yeah.
where the scene is. Like people didn't have cell phones, so like longer attention spans, right?
Yeah.
But they were epic.
Yeah, I mean, look, they didn't have cell phones, but they had bladders. How the fuck did you stay in the film for 3 hours? To jump onto some of the things that you mentioned that didn't work. I felt like the relationship between Elvira and Tony was so rushed. It's like the
Yeah,
movie is so long. You at the very least could have shown them falling for each other because he just says
yeah,
like, "Hey, I want you," and she's like, "Whatever," and she like laughs one time. He kills
yeah.
Frank, and then they're married, and then they're breaking up. It's like, wait, I never saw y'all doing good. Like, and not that I needed a sex scene, but I needed, I could have had her slipping out of his room at night or something, or, stealing a kiss at some, like the first kiss that they have, and the fear around Frank finding out. None of that. He doesn't even touch her.
Well, and I think the thing that I want to pull that you're saying is like you didn't see her ever lean
No.
into it other than the laugh. We needed him to win her over in some way. To your
Yes.
point, he was just like mine, and she was like, okay, I guess I'll go
Well,
along with it.
and the interesting thing about the laugh is that was an improvised moment. They're in the car and
Wow.
Tony takes her hat and puts it on and she laughs because he's like, "Well, would you go out with me now?" And she goes, "No." And they left it in because they felt like it showed their budding romance. But it's like, that's a bad thing that you didn't have something written
You should have
to
written that.
yeah, and I will say to that same point, Michelle Pfeiffer does the best that she can do with very little.
Mm-hmm.
Every woman in this movie is so underwritten.
It's so
She
true.
doesn't, I don't know who she is. I don't know why she's with Frank.
Where
She's
she
just
came
like,
from.
where does she come from? She's just like a bitch, which is fine. Like she's allowed to have attitude, but I never see any moment where she's happy or
Right.
why did she start, why is she doing so much coke? Does she miss her family? Is she a model? Like who is she?
You know what's crazy, friend, is that like I guess it's not crazy because it's the '80s and it's America and male dominated field, but like in patriarchy, but they're just foils for the men. They're
Mhm.
just foils to soften the men
Yeah.
or for the men to be a victor over.
Yeah.
Right? They don't have personality. They have attitudes. They have attitudes, or they're doughy.
Yeah, I mean the sister is, the sister was also really weird because like she was simultaneously like 13 and 40 at the same time.
It's
I was
so
like, how
true.
old is this woman? She's like,
When we
"Oh,
meet her,
Tony,
she's like,
I'm
when
so
we meet her,
happy
she's
you're
like,
home."
"Oh my god, I'm going to school," and I'm yes, like a puppy dog. You're so
Like,
right. You're so
how
right.
old are you? And the mom is very negative Nancy, finger waggy. And again, the underwritten of it all, where like she has every reason to be suspicious of Tony and
Yeah,
to say, like, you're a bad guy. And yet it's still framed as like this fucking naggy bitch. It's like,
yeah.
your son is a crime boss, like
Well, because he's not working to convince her. She just yells at him, and then he's like, "Okay, okay, okay," right?
yeah, and to your point about like us getting to know Tony, and I'm sorry I'm jumping to the fix here, but
No,
like seeing him at home with his family would have been a great opportunity to see a different version of
one
Tony.
thousand
And
percent.
suddenly we realize like, wow, he's doing all of this bad stuff because he really cares about his mom and his sister. And there's, maybe a moment where the mom is like, I don't want to know what you do. I want to
Mm,
preserve this version of Tony because whoever you are
that's
out there is somebody else.
and you know what? And through her having that kind of
Mhm.
like forced ignorance, we can empathize with that, and then be conversely and
Yes.
adjacent empathize with him and have care for him.
I
You
think
know,
it would also help. Sorry to jump in. I think it would also really tie in well with there's a scene where the Bolivian drug lord asks Tony to kill this journalist, and they're waiting to kill the journalist. And then they see that the journalist's wife and kids are in the car with him.
right.
And Tony's like, I can't do it. And I didn't buy it. I was like, okay, but if we had seen that he really loved his mom, or he really wants to have kids, he really wants to be a father someday, I would have really believed that he was like, I can't kill
You know
this man and his wife and kids.
what we're talking about? We're talking about the save the cat moment, right?
The save the cat moment.
Class, if you don't remember, the save the cat moment is like when you see the protagonist have a moment where they do something that's empathetic. They
Mm-hmm.
figuratively save the cat, and we lean into them, and we have empathy, and we see their morality.
Yeah.
And this moment that Francesca is talking about, where Tony refuses to kill this journalist, it's toward the end of the film. And so,
and
like,
I don't buy it. We've seen
you
you
don't
kill
buy it.
every motherfucking person you come across.
It's the Bolivian drug lord sends his henchmen with Tony to kill the guy, and the way that Tony refuses to kill the journalist is by shooting the fucking henchman in the head and screaming like, "What?" You're like, "What the?" That's not the save of the cat.
Yeah, and to your point, if that had happened, if that he didn't have to kill the guy, but like if he had done that early in the movie, we would have really seen the journey to become the bad guy. A great
Yeah.
example is Breaking Bad. You start watching Breaking
Mm.
Bad, Walter White is this sniveling chemistry teacher that couldn't kill a fly. And at the end of the show, he is, I'm the motherfucker that knocks. You should be afraid of me. Meanwhile, in Scarface, we meet Tony and he's like, oh, I knife motherfuckers for fun. he said, oh, knife him before a green card? Bet I had a good ass time doing it.
well, this is another thing that didn't work. There's this, when we first meet Tony, the Mariel boat lift thing happens, and we see all this historical footage of all these Cuban people emigrating to Florida. And then we go to the customs office where he's being interrogated by all the 3 or 4 cops. And he's talking to these cops like, I'll never do that. And you're like, how? I wrote down, I was like, how are you talking to a customs agent like that, trying to get into the country, monologuing?
Oh, and just giving them so much fucking attitude. I was like, now you know a white person wrote this, because there's no fucking way that this brown man is mouthing off to the customs agent and leaving with all of his teeth intact. But again, to save the cat of it all, that really could have been a great scene to learn that Tony is a good guy, that he has the American dream, that he wants to start a business, that he wants to do all these things, and he slowly is corrupted.
He slowly breaks bad.
He slowly breaks bad. That would have been really wonderful. Okay, so to pivot, what did work in the film for you?
You know what I mean, I know this was shot in 1983, and the 80s nostalgia is everywhere. So to us in 2025 watching it, I was like, oh my God, this is a fucking time capsule.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that, because we were born in the 80s, but we're children of the 90s.
Yes.
And that we became fully cognizant and aware of culture, I think, and cultural moments, for me anyway, more so in the 90s. So I really appreciated the time capsule of it all. I wrote this thing down. I don't know if this worked or didn't work. It worked. So they go to this club Babylon in the movie.
Babylon was terrible.
They go to this club Babylon. Everybody's dancing and terribly dancing. They're awful dancers. But she's
just punching the air and
gyrating.
And it's just so very obvious that they're not dancing to music, because everyone is dancing on a different beat.
Where's the beat? But the one thing I did write down is I was like, never underestimate the audacity of a white man on the dance floor with no shame. I mean, it is so they just don't care, and I love it. I love that. I'm judging you, but live, right? Because don't listen to me. So I thought that worked really well. You have this thing about the cocaine doing that the actress had to do in the movie coming up, but that's one of the things that I thought really worked. I believe that they were snorting coke.
Oh, they
I
was doing coke.
really left and right. I was like, God
Oh,
damn.
and you know what? I will also say that Michelle Pfeiffer, again, she's really in the movie for a hot second, but every single time I noticed her get thinner. I noticed the
Did you
circles under her.
really?
I noticed the circles because I thought she was thin to begin with.
She
And later
was.
on, I was like, God damn, she looking real thin. Her hair wasn't looking as lustrous. She had some darker circles under her
I didn't
eyes
notice any of that.
when they well I'm also
A woman.
she's hot. I was just like wood bang. I thought Michelle Pfeiffer was just an absolute vision. I loved her wardrobe. I would have worn every single thing she
Beautiful.
had on.
Beautiful.
To your point about like the 80s nostalgia, I loved the sets in this movie. Tony's house is insane. Like it's
Tony's house
bull.
is gaudy and
It
like
is
ostentatious.
it's awful, but it's totally like new money. Like you just
Yeah.
got some money.
You don't
and
know what the
so
fuck you doing.
you don't know what to do. And he's like, I'm buying a tiger. You know, like and like the walls are like one room is like every wall is red, and then another room every wall is black with like
Yeah.
gold around it. It was just like so over the top. I loved
Yeah.
that. And then like, you know, the fountain and the statues and the marble, and it was just very like, oh, they are rolling in dough. I
Mm-hmm.
also really loved the outfits, like the white suits with like the big collars.
Collars, yeah.
I have a photo of my dad in Miami wearing a white suit. I will send it to you. It's just so Miami Vice with his big freaking sunglasses and like the big collar, and he's fucking smoking a cigarette. And it's just like that is how everybody was dressed. Like
Wow.
the shirt unbuttoned like way low and
Too low.
too low, and like and the women in the bikini, like the high cut bikinis. I'll
Mm-hmm.
also say, as a Florida girl who lived in Miami for 6 years, it really surprised me that a lot of those exteriors were not actually shot in Miami.
I couldn't believe that either.
There are places, and you know, I was a tour guide on the Miami Duck tour, where I would be doing the tour, and we were showing out places from Scarface, and none
Are
of
you
those
for
places.
real?
We had Scarface all up and down that tour, Delon, and none of that shit was shot in Miami.
That is so fucking funny.
I
Look, listen,
know.
he who holds the narrative holds the history, okay? What was I was gonna say something. Oh, about the clothes. One
Mm-hmm.
thing I really did appreciate that I do remember this, I don't know where I learned this, but there was a lot of actual silk being worn in the 80s. There are
Mm.
the men are wearing like, I don't know if it's silk suits, but they have like silk shirts under
Yeah.
their
Uh-huh.
suits.
Mm-hmm.
That at one
That's
point, like,
sweaty.
oh, it's so sweaty. But like, if you can get a wind behind you, that is
Mm-hmm.
sexy. I can't wear it because
Mm-hmm.
I sweat my ass off. But
Yeah, and you know what I'll say? I wish that men were into wearing like a cool suit too. I mean, again, it's hot, like warm, but like we don't see dudes really dress up anymore. Women dress up all the time. Guys aren't wearing a cool suit to go to the club, you know?
and when they do dress up next to their woman, they're barely tucked in shirt.
Oh yeah.
The socks are all the wrong kind. It
Yeah.
looks terrible. The suit jacket doesn't really fit. I will
Yeah,
say
it's
this.
that like preppy, it's that like preppy boy. It's like a blazer with like white shorts. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
jorts.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
hate it.
RuPaul said this. He was saying that like he always wears a suit when he's not, dressed up in drag. He
Hmm.
always wears a suit everywhere. He's like, it's the easiest uniform. He's like, it's three pieces.
It's
It's
so chic.
like an undershirt, a jacket, some pants, and a set of shoes. He's like,
Hmm.
I don't have to think. It's the easiest thing, and I've never thought about that. And you're never overdressed because
It's
like
great.
you
You
always
can
look
dress it
great.
up. You can dress it down. It's very
Yeah.
cute.
Did you like this movie?
No, no. I mean, it was just too long. It was too long. I feel like if we had gotten into it faster, I would have liked it more. But I think you've hit on so many of the things that I didn't like. Like, I didn't know who Tony was. I wasn't really interested in him. There were so many scenes where it was just like a bunch of talking, and I was like, I don't care. Like, just give me some. For an action film, there was a lot of moments where there was no action. Like, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
talking.
Yeah.
Like I didn't love it. What about you?
I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I have the reference point, because now
Yeah.
I can speak about it like with a full throated opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But am I watching it again? Like if I end up if like my if my future boyfriend is like, oh, Scarface is my favorite movie, also like I'm judging you. But if it's your favorite movie, I'm like, yeah, we can watch it on like your birthday.
I'm sorry, what gay man says that Scarface is his favorite
A
movie?
gay man that likes Steven Bauer. Okay, shit.
That's the only he's got the Stephen Bauer edit. It's just every scene that he's in, that's it. Do you think that this movie deserves to be lauded as a classic?
I mean, who am I to take that away from this film? Um,
Yeah.
but uh, in terms of like art, is it
Mm.
a great art piece? Is it like, does it add to like the canon of film? I'm sure Martin Scorsese or someone else like that would have a great argument for that. I don't. I'm
Mm.
like, it was fine. It was fine.
It was fine. It was
You
fine.
know.
Wait, one thing I wanted to go back to that surprised me, a number of lines in the movie I recognized. Like people would say things in the movie. I'm like, oh my God, I've heard
Oh
people
yeah.
say that line. Like there's
Don't get
one
high on your
line,
own supply was one
don't
I
get
thought
high
of.
on your own supply was one. Tony says, first you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women. I've heard people
That's
say that.
that's in a rap song. Yeah.
That's in like every fucking rap song.
Yeah.
The world is yours. Whose world is this? The world is mine. It's yours. It's yours. That's
Yeah.
Nas. Like there are so many. Then he also says every dog has his day. That comes from
Yeah.
this movie. I was like, oh my God, like. Okay, you were giving us some iconic lines. So for that reason, I would say maybe that does cement it as a
I
classic
hear
because
you.
that's hard to do.
Well, and it was so big at the time that it is, ubiquitous.
Oh God.
It's just like it's stamped on us, right? It's like a
Yeah.
moment. And I don't know, actually, I think Godfather was definitely before this. And I
Yeah,
watching it, I was like, this is
70s.
trying to be the Godfather.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so I think it's a nice kind of continuation, not nice, but a continuation of that gangster movie,
Yeah.
that Scorsese and the like are kind of known for. So let's get into some interesting facts about the film. Most of the film was shot in LA, as Fran was talking about, instead of Miami, where the film takes place. That's because the city of Miami decided not to allow them to film because they were worried about the film's subject matter, that it would hurt the city's tourism. And, like Fran also mentioned this, a large scale protests of local Cuban Americans were happening over the film as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Listen, I don't blame them, and I thought this was important to include because so often people say things like, "Oh, everyone's so sensitive. Back in the day, you could make movies, blah blah blah." No, there have always been films where people said, "I don't like this." Maybe you don't remember, but
Right.
the Cuban Americans said, You can shoot that shit somewhere else. You're not about to do it on my home turf."
Right.
Another interesting thing, the chainsaw scene was based on a real story that occurred in Miami in the late 70s and early 80s. That
Listen,
was crazy to me.
the quaaludes were running, the cocaine was running, and so was the violence. I mean,
Yes.
the 70s and 80s were kind of, well, it was the 80s specifically were
Mhm.
like a decade of excess, like
Yes.
spend money, capitalism is good,
Mhm. Go big or go
Wolf of
home.
Wall Street. Yes, go
Yeah.
big or go home, right? So the idea that it's just like abundance everywhere, it's things are gonna explode, violence being one of them, and all kind of
Yeah.
like criminal trades.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Scarface was originally given an X rating. It's now NC-17 for its extreme violence, which feels appropriate to me.
Yeah.
De Palma had to submit it 3 times before securing the R rating.
That makes me think, what was in there before y'all got to R? What else
or,
did y'all
or
get rid of?
or whose palms were you greasing? Okay.
I mean, yes, it's still very, very violent. This I thought was also very interesting. While Pacino did not snort real cocaine throughout the film, thank goodness, it's rumored to have been powdered milk. Whatever he did snort messed up his nose. In a 2015 interview, Pacino said, "For years after, I've had things up in there. I don't know what happened to my nose, but it's changed." Was it worth it?
I
Was it?
mean, I mean, career launching.
Did you really have to snort it though? I mean,
Well,
you could pie it to mouth. You think Michelle said my nose is fine.
She said, "I've had a couple jobs." No, honestly, like when they do it in film today, is it CGI? Like I don't
I
know
don't
how they
know.
do that. Because back then you really had to like smoking. Like you have to smoke. It's not a real nicotine, but you have to smoke
Yeah,
something. You
there's
know?
something in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So despite the title, Tony Montana is called Scarface only once in the film, and it's in Spanish at that.
Mm.
Cara cicatriz,
Ciatriz?
ciatriz. I
I
don't
don't know
know.
how to say that.
Um,
Yeah, but you know what? I like that because I fucking hate when remember it ends with
it
us.
ends
Like
with a
we don't need you to say, "Hey Scarface, get over here."
so stupid, so stupid.
So, screenwriter Oliver Stone spent time in Florida and the Caribbean to work on the script, which almost got his ass into trouble since he was also battling a cocaine addiction at the time. He said, "Let me taste the wares." It was so
Listen,
bad.
you have to study. You
Yeah.
have to see what
He's
it's
like, let me
about.
let me get in character. It really got bad for him that he decided to leave the country for Paris in hopes of kicking the habit and finishing the script. And I saw a quote from him that said that he finished that script stone cold sober. So shout out to you,
Wow.
Oliver. But he said, I gotta get out of here.
Girl, especially in the well, I'm not mad at you, but I hope you had a good time, Ollie.
Yeah, he
Um,
did. He did.
d- due to the extreme violence portrayal of the drug trade, Scarface was banned in several countries, including Malaysia and Singapore. They're really over there, especially in Singapore. Do you know you can't chew gum in Singapore?
What is
You
that?
cannot,
Why?
you cannot, because they don't want it
Oh,
to get
because they
stuck.
don't.
Because people are ignorant and they'll leave it
Oh.
under fucking chairs and shit.
Now they should do that here. They should
I
do that
mean,
here. Y'all are just, I
absolutely.
mean, listen, in LA, people take a shit. I mean, like literally
Wait,
just
but in my class, I put my hand under the chair to like lift myself up, gum
mm-mm.
on my fucking hand. I'm like, y'all are
No,
disgusting. The trash is right
that's
there.
yeah, it's so foul. I thought this was really interesting. Again, I noticed so many phrases and characters in the film because rappers love some Scarface. Tony Montana and the film are often mentioned in songs and albums. Delon, any thoughts on why rappers love this film so much?
I mean, it glorifies like the gangster trade, right? And
Drugs,
it also
money.
like there's no comeuppance. This gets kind of to my fix, but there's no comeuppance for Tony other than death, and I don't think that
Yeah.
that's valid. I think death is the escape. Death is peace, right? And
Yeah.
so he gets to do all of the violence, have everyone around him killed, and then he gets to go out in a blaze of glory and be shot down and be saying, "You can't, you taking." Literally taking bullets and be like, I can take your bullets, I can take your bullets, and then he dies in some
Yeah.
water. It's like it's glorifying
Yeah,
it.
it's really sad that so many of these men specifically, love this. Of course, Houston rapper Scarface, Nas, "The World Is Yours," Jay Z, Rick Ross's album Maybach. Rick Ross's label Maybach Music is a nod to Tony Montana. Future has a song called Tony Montana. Lil Wayne, 50 Cent, Meek Mill. Snoop Dogg at one time said that he would watch the film once a month. Now, do
Well,
you think that's because he was high and he forgot that he watched it
he was high
already?
on his own supply. Yeah, because he forgot that he
Once a
watched it.
month?
You know
You
what he
don't need to
did?
watch this once a month.
No, you know what he did? He would start watching it. He'd fall asleep and he tried to find when he started it. He just started over. I love some of these quotes that you put in here, Francesca. I'm going to start with the
Hmm.
Elvira one. Elvira
Oh,
Hancock, who
yes.
is Michelle Pfeiffer, she said, which is also racist. She was like, "Hey, Jose." She calls Tony Jose. She's like, "Hey, Jose, who, why, when, and how I fuck is none of your business, okay?"
Okay, a feminist at that, a racist feminist. The Hey Jose took me out. I was
Out.
like, now did she come up? Like, was that something that Oliver Stone came up with? Or is because now everyone says, like, hey
Hey,
Jose. You know what I
Jose.
mean?
Yeah.
Like,
No way, Jose.
no way, Jose. Like, I just thought that that was so funny. I also put another quote in here. Tony says, I always tell the truth, even when I lie. What the fuck does that mean? What does that mean? You can't.
Wait, he had another one. He was like, what did he say? I've written down here. He said something about the only thing I have in my life is my balls and what did he say? Fuck, I
He
can't I
says my
can't.
balls and something else. Yeah, he does. He mentions his balls a number of times in the film.
And I was like, what the fuck? Oh wait. I can't find it. Anyway, he's like, my balls and my money. You know, like, what? Another one Tony Montana says is, in this country, you got to make money first. Then you get the money, then you get the power. And when you get the power, then you get the women. This is capitalism and patriarchy just in a fucking braided piece of bread over here. You know, like
not a hollow roll. Yeah.
Wait, don't do that to Holla. Holla's good.
But you know what? I have heard this phrase in a number of songs. I've heard it so many fucking times. And to your point about like why so many rappers love this film, I think this is like the thesis right there. Like this is what's important to you. Money, power, and women. That's it. And infamy. And you know, how sad that we do have so many rappers from, you know, Biggie, Tupac. I mean, there's the list goes on of rappers who are cemented because of the fact that they died at like the peak of, and it's almost like
25 years old.
What they're striving for. Like it's really kind of sick.
Well, and to your point about it being a thesis, friend, I can't blame them because the thesis holds true.
Mm-hmm.
They get you first, you get the money, then you get the power, and then you get the like. It's held true for so many of rappers because capitalism that you go, that's the formula, right? And not only does it hold true for music, it holds true for sports, it holds true for the entertainment industry, right? Like it just gives you access to all of that power and women, which is sadly what men think like that's manhood, like that's your existence, that's the only goal that you have, like that's kind of sad.
Yeah, it really is.
So fuck is also said a total of 226 times in this movie. That's one of the reasons why it initially had its X rating. At the time of its release, it set the record for the most use of the word in an outside of pornography. And I don't think porn. Fuck me, Nanny.
Fuck me. Fuck me.
This podcast is not rated X.
Fuck me.
Oh my god, we were listen, I honestly don't even think they say it that much in porn. It's
just also so funny that we both went to that point.
Because it's so fake. Oh my god.
All right, the last fact, and this is a dark one, and I thought it was very interesting. Tammy Lynn Leppert, who played the blonde girl in the blue bikini during the chainsaw sequence, she's outside flirting with our homeboy Manny. She disappeared July 1983 under suspicious circumstances, and she was later a subject of an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. So she ended up quitting the film midway through production after having a nervous breakdown on set during a very violent scene. She said that she had gotten into some sort of money laundering scheme and was worried that someone was trying to kill her. A few months before the film's release, she disappeared and was never heard from again.
The 80s were crazy.
The 80s were fucking crazy. And I'm sorry, y'all failed her because she said, I am nervous. And y'all said, bye. See you later. And nobody went to check on her or anything.
Yeah, that's when you put this. That's really crazy that this happened. I just watched sorry for the tangent. I just watched the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary, the new one on Netflix.
No,
I mean the stuff that happened prior to DNA and good law enforcement and all that kind of stuff.
That's the time to commit a crime because all that shit is gone. Y'all, we're not going to find you. But it is, and again, I think about that all the time too, with like cell phones and closed circuit cameras and ring cameras, and you know, in the 80s we didn't have any of that. So yeah, you could disappear and we don't have any footage of you, and at the very least, you know, we could do a find my phone and find out what area she was in, or check her Uber receipts, or like something.
the ping of the tower, right? Even when you're not using your phone, often like whatever the signal is, it's pinging your phone so we know where you are. You know, one of the towers.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Crazy.
Well, now that we've gone over Scarface, it's time for us to fix it. But first, let's take a quick break. And we're back. Delon, would you like to go first?
Sure, why not? So I kind of alluded to this in the beginning, but like I do think that my fix is like Tony is the anti-hero and he really has no comeuppance and he really has nothing redeeming.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing about him. So I think like I would put him under the jail. I want him
Yeah.
to go to jail and not be able to die and just escape accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really want, and this is kind of making it a little bit of a rom com, I don't want everyone to die. I want Gina and Manny to fucking survive, and I want them
Yes.
to take over. Like, you know, it's the last tag of the film. Tony's in jail. He's in solitary confinement. We see him, you know,
Mm-hmm.
clink clink. The judge hits the gavel, and then we have a last tag. Manny takes over the drug business for a little bit, and or
Mm.
just takes a bunch of money and invests it in Gina's salons. Right. So Gina,
Okay.
Tony bought Gina a salon because she was going to beauty school. There's like this really short clip of that happening in the film. Make it a franchise or make it a chain of salons. They have
Mm-hmm.
some
Mm-hmm.
kids, and then it says things can be set right, right? And I know that's
Yeah.
a little Pollyanna and like perhaps a little positive, but it's happened in real life. Just look at the Kennedys; those they were
Oh.
bootlegging. The
Oh.
Kennedys. You think the Kennedys just made money? No, the Kennedys
Mm-hmm.
were bootleggers during Prohibition.
Yeah.
So you know the prototype is there. But I want him to
I
go under the jail.
Yeah, and I think to your point, we need a resolution, as Aaliyah said. I need to see something happen that makes me feel satisfied, and I kind of hate that like he has this perfect quote unquote story where like he just dies. Like there's no justice. He's killed so many
Yes.
innocent random people. I keep thinking about the guy running with the chainsaw through somebody's house. The lady's in bed reading a book. Who's gonna fix my wall? Like, I want this motherfucker to pay some restitution. I want him to serve
Yes.
some time. So I would like to see that version of the film as well.
Yeah. What's your
Who
fix?
would you like if we were to do a remake? Do you have any thoughts about who you might cast in this new version?
Um, gosh, I do. Like, I don't. They have to be Cuban in
Of
some respect.
Yeah.
I know they would,
Mm-hmm.
but hear me out. I don't know that many Cuban actors, right?
Yeah.
I know this guy William Levy, who's like this model who he dated Sofia Vergara for a minute, which
Ooh, yes, I know who that
and
is. I know that
he
is.
is fucking
He is
hot.
hot.
So
He's hot.
I would class him as Manny,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and my stunt casting would be because this is what Hollywood would do. They put Pitbull as
I was
Scarface.
literally Dale. They would absolutely put Pitbull as Tony Montana.
Yeah.
Montana, absolutely.
And then I mean, she is not. She's so far from Cuban, but you know, Zendaya has having her moment. I would love to see her as Elvira.
Okay, you literally took my fucking fix because that's who
Really?
yes, because I have two.
Okay.
So I would love to see the film from Elvira's perspective. And so, like, maybe
Ooh.
she's the A story and Tony's the B story, and then they cross and they get together. I could absolutely see Zendaya playing an Elvira type. And then what I would really love is maybe Elvira takes over the fucking empire. You know what I
Ooh.
mean? Just a little girl
Yeah.
boss it up a little bit.
I love that. I
That would
love
be
that
fun.
as a reboot, but a twist, right? A reboot from a different perspective. I really dig that.
Mm-hmm,
She's a
mm-hmm.
writer, bitch.
That's my feminism. And then my other version was I saw this on IMDb that when Scarface was re-released in 2003 to cinemas, the studio wanted the director to change the soundtrack to include some of the rap songs that were inspired by the film, but the director refused. But I thought that was really interesting, and I thought it could be really cool to do a musical adaptation of Scarface using famous rap songs. And so the songs are telling the story of Tony Montana, but also maybe through the lens of these rappers that have been inspired by him. So it's kind of like a new 8 Mile type film. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like,
Listen, I have PTSD from Amelia Perez, so slow
oh,
down now, girl. Not everything should be a
okay,
musical, but I hear you.
but 8 Mile is
Yes.
technically a musical without being a musical. Like
Sure.
rap is in the film and it did win an Oscar, but it also made me think of, do you remember there was this Bob Dylan movie years ago where Bob Dylan is played by different actors
Oh,
throughout the
yes.
film?
Yes, totally.
There's something about that I think could be really interesting where it's kind of like we're seeing slices of these different rappers' lives and how they intersected with Scarface. It's like you see them as kids watching Scarface and then they become adults and
Mm.
you hear the rap songs and it's kind of like almost like a cautionary tale. Like they are talking about how Tony inspired them, but also how they kind of altered their lives to not be Tony Montana, whether it's like 50 Cent getting shot 9 times, or Snoop Dogg is now, fucking Martha Stewart's bestie, like
Brain dead.
Snoop Dogg, there's a very powerful documentary that's about Jimmy Iovine, who started Death Row Records with Dr. Dre, talking about how when Snoop was on trial for murder, that was the moment that Snoop was like, I'm not gonna make fucking gangbang music anymore. I'm gonna
Mm,
stop being murder. I'm gonna do Murder Was the Case, and now I'm gonna do Snoop.
yeah.
He kind of went pop, and so like
Yeah.
there's something interesting about telling the story of how I grew up wanting to be Tony Montana, and then after I saw all my friends die, I realized I gotta, you know what I mean? I gotta make a change. I feel like that would be very powerful.
Yeah, no, I dig that. I also dig it because uh it can be really really conceptual. You know what I mean? There's a
Yes,
lot of room for it to be for you to take risks and do
it's
different
in the
things.
round.
Not a theatrical piece. But like I feel like it can, like your point about Bob Dylan, you it could be documentary style, but like
Yeah.
the visuals could be really cool.
It
Is
could be
excuse me, is
animated. It
I
could
was
be
just gonna
like,
say that. Like, do you
yeah.
remember what is this the Spider Verse?
Yes.
Like
Into the Spider-Verse. I
Into the
love that
Spider Verse,
movie.
that like really like stretched the universe, right?
Yeah.
And made us think very differently about Spider Man being what is a hero. I think is the question mark, or
Yeah. And
who
I
is
love
Spider Man is a question.
that is a great reference too, because in the film, there's all these moments where they're like inside of a comic book, and like the comic book is like ripping apart, and they're
Mm-hmm.
jumping through different portals. That's exactly how I was envisioning this. That like the music is moving the story, and it's almost like you see the rap lyrics coming out, and you see Tony Montana like acting out
Mm.
the moments in the lyrics, and then the lyrics like transform into like little Snoop Dogg as a kid, or whatever. This
Ready
is a
AI,
very
here AI comes
oh
for you.
god, but it's very like artistic, and
Yeah.
I don't know, I think the other reason that I was thinking about this idea is too often rap is discounted as like not a real art form, and I was thinking
Mm.
about this after the Super Bowl, for example,
Mm.
with all of the white people complaining about like I didn't even know what they were saying. And it's like there is this insistence that rap is not real music, and not that it's an attempt to prove it to those people, but to like really lean into the poeticness and lyricism.
Yeah.
I think seeing rap music visually presented in that way would just be really interesting. And I kind of don't know why no one's done it yet.
Well, and also understanding that it's storytelling. Like
Yes.
when you actually, you know what? I'll give you this. If you're like, I don't understand what's being said, great, play it again, right? And or pull up the fucking lyrics and look at it, because once
Look,
you understand, when you
Rap
just
Genius is a whole website that breaks down every fucking lyric.
when you think about what Kendrick's saying, I'll take it back. When you think about like Dear Mama, Tupac, like that
Yeah.
is on the same album as, like, I can't think of another Pac song on that album,
Hmm.
but like not California Love. That's a different album.
Yeah.
But like he has like, Bitches and Hoes, Suck My
Hmm.
Dick, and also
Yeah.
Dear Mama, right? Which is like
Yes.
both of them are poetically not only sound but moving when you really listen to them. And also just
Hmm.
like the skill of it all. When you're like,
Yeah.
yo, you tethered all, not only rhyming, but
The
the meter
wordplay.
and the
Yes.
wordplay. I mean, and Biggie, don't get me started on Biggie.
Yeah.
Biggie is
But
like
that's why I think the
otherworldly.
visual of it would be so cool, because I love in rap when like there's alliteration and simile and analogies that are all kind of taking one word and playing with it lots of different
Yes.
ways. And like, look, fuck Eminem, but like he's so good at taking words that don't rhyme and making them rhyme.
Hmm.
Like and just changing the like the way he says the cadence of the word changes that the way the word sounds, like all of that's so interesting, and I just feel like combined with the right visual it could be really powerful.
I hear you. Yeah. Amazing. Let's see. Sorry, lost the script. Great. So, class, I don't know if y'all have seen Scarface. Do you want to see Scarface? If you do watch that 3 hour tour, let us know if we fixed it. Okay. Hit us up on Instagram at FixItPod or email us, lemmefixitpod@gmail.com. Now it's time for everyone's favorite segment, the Glow Up, where we give props to those who have turned themselves around without our help. Fran, do you want to go first?
Yes, sure. My glow up goes to community. Go with me
Mm.
here. It's weird to say, but I have been so inspired by the way that my friends have been investing in community. And I really feel like this is a result of, the results of the election here in LA after the fires. A really good friend of mine, Jenny Yang, shout out to her. She's a great comedian and actress and writer. She started a group here that meets once a month, and it is focused on how we can be better prepared for natural disasters, for
Wow.
things like the group is talking about getting certified to, learn how to use a gun, which is not something that I want to do, but a few people in the group
Wow.
said that they would
Wow.
like to. But also kind of putting together like what's in your to go bag and making sure that you're ready if there's a natural disaster. Because truthfully, I was not ready. I didn't know. I was just kind of like, oh shit, I need to leave. Okay. And so I was really inspired by Jenny putting this group together. And it is, when we meet, there's like a little sheet of questions and we break up into little groups and we talk about the topics on there.
Wow.
And we are all talking about, for example, like who are the people in your neighborhood that you are responsible for if there's a natural disaster. So, like,
Wow.
the elderly lady in my building, like I have her phone number. And so she was my person that I called during the fires. But then, like, I also have, made sure that she knows how to get a hold of me if she needs something. And so, off the strength of that, I started my own little thing most recently for some all my actor and writer friends to get together and talk about how we're feeling with the state of the industry. My
Wow.
friend Elliot Glazer and I put it together, and we had like a sharing circle where we had people write down how they're feeling anonymously, and then we went through them and we talked about them and we kind of
I
brainstormed
love that.
some ways to make extra money while Hollywood is kind of in peril. And we're maybe organizing another one where we can get some execs to come and talk
Wow.
about kind of like the other side of the industry, like what are things that they're struggling with, just in terms of like realizing that it often feels like us versus them in the industry.
Mm,
And the reality is like it's not all sunshine and roses on their end. Like they're trying to keep
right.
their jobs, right? So I was just really inspired by that. And it just feels really nice to, in the face of everything, say, okay, there's one version of this where I complain on the internet and I just talk shit about how bad everything is, and there's also a version where I go, okay, we got to figure this out.
What
What are
am
we
I
doing?
doing? What am I doing? Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out to Jenny Yang because she really inspired me, and hopefully people listening to this will be inspired to start pouring into their communities too.
I love that. I really, as off mic, you and I have talked about one of the things I've
Mm-hmm.
complained about having changed cities. I have a community, a theater community up here that's and friends therein, but like I don't really have the gay community that I had in New York, and I
Yeah.
don't have a community outside of the theater community. And in Boston, it's very different because everyone lives. I kind of compare it to living on an island. They have a family, or they don't live
Mm-hmm.
like in Boston proper, and so it's a drive in, and so that really sings to my heart, saying like, oh, craft it, craft your own
Yeah.
community. There are
Yeah.
communities that I can join when I have more time. I do too. You and I have 17 jobs, so like, where's the
I
fucking time? I don't know how you find the time to do it.
I
um,
honestly, I really don't even know how I put this together.
but like, but I'm inspired by that because it's possible. Which leads to kind of one of my fixes, but I'm gonna save it for the second one because I have two. Or not,
Okay.
excuse me, not I one of my glow
Your
ups. Glow
glow
ups,
up.
sorry. I my first one's very cynical and a little political. I'm
Okay.
giving the glow up to HIV.
Oh.
Why? Because of the funding that has been struck from
Oh.
USAID and
Yeah.
from other organizations that were helping other countries, combat HIV. Not only other countries, but this country as well, friends.
Mhm, mhm.
we're now backsliding on it, right? We
Ugh.
weren't close to like finding a cure for it, but we were
But
close
we were
to
managing it.
eradicating it
Yeah.
because so many people were living with it for a long time, and or we are able to, like, I take a pill on a regular basis, that's called PrEP. It's prophylaxis, right? So it's like before you take this daily pill, and it's 99.9% effective to prevent you from getting HIV if you have unprotected sex, right? And I've been on this thing for years, and it's worked, right? And it's worked significantly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that that's going away, because the research that was contributed to HIV helped create that drug,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so now it's all in limbo, and the countries that need it the most, the countries that need the funding the most to actually just get drugs to people to keep them from HIV becoming AIDS, is now gone. And
Wow.
so, like, it's just really frustrating to sit in this country and not and feel like we're powerless therein, when
Yeah.
we're not necessarily responsible to help other people, but we are the stewards. When you
Yeah.
talk about we're quote unquote the greatest country in the world,
Well, and
you
I
have
would also say
responsibilities therein.
we have been in every motherfucking body's business.
Talk about it.
So, like, I think we are responsible. We have traipsed all over the fucking globe, meddling, said, y'all shouldn't be doing that. Y'all should be doing this, giving money, taking money, drugs, guns, all sorts of shit. So, yeah, we are responsible.
Right, deposing leaders,
Mm-hmm.
switching out leaders, all kind of crazy shit. So it's very cynical. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not glowing up HIV, but like, it
Yeah,
is
but the
gonna
reality is she's
it's
having
a
a moment.
she's having a moment, and she's hopefully she doesn't, but it's about to rise, like the
Yeah.
cases are, it's heartbreaking and scary. But my other one, to put like a little bit of a salve on that, is honoring myself and honoring
Oh,
yourself, right?
yes.
One of the things that I've been working on in therapy, perhaps TMI, but this is how we do it. um my therapist is really trying to get me to honor myself, right? I'm talking about, like, the world is like, there's a lot of existential things happening right now. I feel like there's a lot of output, right? I'm working, I'm doing, and there's not anything pouring into me. And we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to find ways to honor myself, and it's just become a mantra of mine. How am I honoring myself? If I get frustrated with something that I said I would do that I don't want to do, that's an issue of mine. And or some with work, right, where work's not going well, or I'm not able to complete something with the speed or alacrity with which I would love to, I go, well, how am I honoring myself, right?
Mm.
Do you need to take a break? You know what? You can
You
email
know,
them and say
yes.
it's not going to be there on time. That's what you could
Oh,
do.
you are preaching to me. I love hearing this about you. And
Yeah, so
you
trying to honor
deserve to do
myself.
that.
You
Oh,
have to.
yeah. No, I'm really proud of you because that's something I'm always telling you. You don't have to, you can say no. One thing Patel's gonna do is say no, stay home. I don't feel like doing it. It's too cold in here. I want to leave. Like so good for you for like really committing to that practice. I'm proud of you,
Yeah,
friend.
yeah. So honoring myself is a glow up.
All right, class. Now we want to hear from you. Maybe you would like to suggest a TV show, a celeb, or a brand that we should fix in a future episode. Or you want to go ahead and send us a voice note of you giving a tagline for the
Heck
show.
yeah.
Hit us up over on Instagram at FixItPod or email us, lemmefixitpod@gmail.com.
And as we keep saying, we have a YouTube channel for these faces. Get on that, youtube.com/@fixitpod. And if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to give us a rating on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app. I'm DeLon.
And I'm Francesca, and this was
Let
Lemme
me fix
Fix
it.
It.
Say hello to my little friend.
That was good.